my top 10 common sense tips to help make managing your money and your money decisions so much easier. Hello and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay, the podcast that is all about helping you realize how powerful and capable you really are when it comes to taking control of your financial future, especially when you start making small little simple changes in the way that you use money today, and then back them up with your growing level of financial knowledge and literacy. So if you love being educated and empowered, I'm here for you every Monday morning at 5 a.m. And just to remind you, I'm actually a qualified financial planner with over 20 years experience, so I know what I'm talking about. And I have a lot of wise advice to share with you. Now, today's podcast actually was inspired by a blog post that I read from my favorite Australian economist, Shane Oliver. And his original blog post is actually 15 common sense tips to help make managing your money or your finances. And I will link this in the podcast notes because it's a brilliant blog post with lots of great wisdoms and insights shared by Shane. You can in fact subscribe to his newsletter, which is well worth it. So as I mentioned, today's episode is inspired by what I read because as I was reading through his own advice, I started to think about what are the best things I can share with you today that will help make your life easier and help make sure that you make really intelligent, wise, valuable decisions that are in positive alignment to your financial goals and dreams. And this is the list that I have come up with. Now, if you've been following me for a while now, you will know that I'm a little bit OCD and I have this obsession with the number 10. So my list isn't 15, it's a bit more consolidated, and it's consolidated, of course, down to 10 common sense tips. So I really hope that after listening to this, you have my voice or my words of wisdom ruminating through your head and you hear this advice pop up at the perfect opportunity when it comes to making a big decision around what you are going to do with your hard-earned money. So let's get started. Number 1, research before you buy. This isn't just related to making investment decisions as to what you're going to invest in, but it actually includes everything. Toilet paper, washing powder, computers, gadgets, outfits, accessories, what shares you're going to buy, what investment property you're considering, what mortgage you're thinking of taking out, what superannuation account is right for you, which insurance company to go with, which superannuation account might be right for you. Do your research before you buy, because when we stop and take the time to do even just a little bit of research, it's quite incredible what we can discover. First of all, we have a greater insight as to what that particular product is all about. We can see the pros and the cons. We can also see the risks behind that product or the opportunities behind that product and get a greater feel as to whether that is the right product for us, which then leads us feeling better about our decisions. But also when we stop and take the time to do our research before we buy, quite often we can find better value. We can find the same product or a similar product at a cheaper price, which again only serves our financial well-being further. So stopping to take the time to do your research before you buy really does make a difference, and those savings can really add up. And we are only adding to our own financial literacy money bank. Number 2, don't bite off more than you can chew. Now, this is not just related to debts and how much money you borrow, but also your goals, the goals that you set for yourself. Let me explain. When we bite off more than we can chew when it comes to borrowing money, we become a slave to our situation. We have to really take a big, humbling, and sometimes painful step back from our lifestyle. We can't invest in the same experiences or have the same quality of life necessarily. It can come with a lot of pain, regret, frustration, and for some, a little bit of sadness along the way because they've become a slave to their decision. So if you see something that you really want and it is expensive and it is out of your reach, really think twice before making a decision. As that old saying goes, sleep on it and see how you feel in the morning. Sit down and think about what you are comfortable giving up quitting, stopping, or cutting down on in order to have that particular item in your life. And if you really want it, but you realize it's actually a bit more than you can handle right now, it doesn't mean that you need to stop and give up or throw the towel in. It just simply means you maybe need to wait a little bit longer, save up, or perhaps maybe do more research and find that particular item somewhere else. There's always a blessing in disguise. And when it comes to not biting off more than you can chew in relation to your goals, I recommend not setting crazy, overambitious goals for yourself. As admirable as that may be, sometimes we really set ourselves up for failure when we set these crazy, ridiculous, unattainable, unachievable goals for ourselves. Because whilst initially we may be really motivated and inspired, and don't get me wrong, I love the saying, aim for the stars, you may land on the moon. The problem with this is, as we are going through the process and we start to get an inkling of how hard it is and the fact that we can't really see the progress or the progress is too small, quite often it can leave us feeling deflated and defeated. And the flow-on effect from this is we quit, we give up, we throw the towel in, and then nothing actually happens. So what I recommend you do is not give up, but do things differently, do things smarter. And I am a big believer in setting lots of mini, short-term, manageable goals that are in positive alignment to that big, scary, ambitious goal. So for example, say you have a goal to save $100,000 by a particular date. That's great. You can still keep that at the back of your mind, but instead create a fun financial challenge for yourself, which really taps into your mindset. And give yourself fun financial challenges where you have to save, say, $3,000 by the 1st of December 2023, because perhaps that number and that deadline seems so much more realistic. Your thoughts and feelings trigger organic action, which is in positive alignment to that goal because you can actually believe it, feel it, and see it. And without even thinking too hard, your actions will start changing, like I said, organically. So be careful not to bite off more than you can chew, whether it be debts, borrowing money, or whether it be setting goals for yourself. My third bit of advice is always factor in a 3% interest rate rise. Now, I have been saying this ever since Sugar Mama began, which was about 8 or 9 years ago. I've always said when it comes to borrowing money, take into consideration what would happen to your repayments if interest rates were to rise by 3%. Not 3 interest rate rises, but a 3% interest rate rise. And I am so glad that I shared that advice because the people who did follow that advice will be feeling so relieved that they listened to that and applied it in their lives because they would be handling all these ridiculous and frustrating and overwhelming interest rate rises that we are all experiencing right now. So when it comes to borrowing money, sit down and do a budget and then look at what your loan repayments would look like if there was a 3% interest rate rise. And that will give you a great idea as to what your new cash flow would look like, whether you can still keep living in that property or still keep borrowing money or still maintain your lifestyle. And that's not to say then if you couldn't afford it, you can't borrow it. It's just to make sure that you are empowered, you are informed, you are educated, and you understand exactly what you are getting yourself into before you make that final decision. It will also give you a great sense of comfort knowing that if things were to suddenly change, that you can still keep your head above water, or you know proactively what financial boundaries you have in place where you need to start making changes in your life. Advice number 4 is if you're stuck and struggling, put your hand up. Don't bury your head in the sand thinking time will fix everything. It won't. In fact, you run the risk of the problem compounding and getting worse. So if you are stuck with your money, you don't understand what to do, things are spiraling out of control, you're feeling overwhelmed or even paralyzed with fear, put your hand up and get help. Call the 1-800-DEBT helpline. Search for financial planners that offer pro bono work. And if you read through the requirements of pro bono and you think, I actually don't meet this requirement, don't give up. Pick up the phone and call them. At the end of the day, financial planners are humans, and they're humans who want to help people with their money. So perhaps they might listen to what you've experienced and what you've gone through and give you some solutions, or perhaps they can help you in a different way where it doesn't actually cost you money, or perhaps they can give you a discount on their advice. Don't bury your head in the sand. Put your hand up and say that you need help. And I can tell you from helping thousands of people, not just in Australia, but around the world, the moment you put your hand up and ask for help, the relief that you feel feel through your body is huge because you've stepped up and taken ownership of your situation, and you've made a promise to yourself that you are going to do things differently. You are going to research and explore ways, strategies, hacks, steps, and tricks that are going to help improve your financial well-being from this point going forward. And there is absolutely no shame or judgment in getting yourself into a financial mess. And the power of financial education helps stop you making the same mistakes over and over again. Advice number 5 is to be real. Keep it real. Life happens. No one is invincible. Now, there's a couple of different elements to this particular type of advice. The first thing is the importance of having emergency money. There are people out there that tell you that you only need $1,000 of emergency money. That is absolutely ridiculous and crazy. The right amount of emergency money varies from person to person depending on their age, their financial responsibilities, where they live, their working conditions, whether they're a casual person or whether they've got annual leave and sick leave to fall back on, whether they're self-employed, what their existing financial liabilities might be. So everyone needs emergency money, and you need to work out exactly how much you need, which is going to differ from one person to the next. Now, on that note, if you ever want to know how much emergency money you really need, I highly recommend listening to my episode with Michael Thompson on How Do They Afford That, where we talk about this and help you work out exactly how much you really need. Now, coming back to tip number 5 about being real and understanding that life happens, and that is to look at your financial journey. When it comes to working on your financial well-being, you can create a set and forget strategy where you are investing a certain amount each month, or you're saving a certain amount of each month, or you are paying debt at a certain amount each month or each week or each fortnight or whatever it may be. It's a consistent plan. However, if you're someone who is really motivated and inspired and you are really setting those, slightly ambitious goals for yourself, you need to be realistic as to what is sustainable when it comes to your financial goals and dreams. And the people that I'm talking to and trying to connect to and reach out to with this particular advice are people who are on a very aggressive, say, debt-free strategy and journey. And whilst I think this is incredibly important and valuable, and I think it's incredibly motivating and inspiring myself, it's important to understand and be real about bursts and spurts. Trying to be so frugal and mean with your money is not sustainable. It can leave you feeling burnt out. And it can then also sometimes trigger this self-destructive reaction where you go and undo all of your hard work. So obviously try and always have a consistent baseline in place where you're paying, for example, $200 per month off your credit card or whatever it may be that's your financial strategy. But then understand the power of bursts and spurts, and where you try and think outside of the square as to what your burst and spurt might look like, what you can do, and for how long it's going to run for before you return back to your baseline strategy again and you catch your breath again, you reset and you recharge your battery so that you can perform in another burst and spurt in your life. Now, the other component of this advice is insurances. Again, keep it real. Personal insurances are extremely important. You would have heard me now talk about income protection, trauma cover, TPD, life cover, more than a few times now. And it is important that you look at your situation realistically. Ask yourself, what would happen if I got sick and I couldn't work? I couldn't work for over a year. How much annual leave do I have? How much sick leave can I use up before I'm completely broke with no more money left in my account or my savings has evaporated? Can I borrow money? What would that look like? Is that something I really want to put on my shoulders? This is when you need to be real and look at, all right, maybe I do need an income protection policy. And again, you would do your research, as I suggest in tip number 1. Look at, all right, which insurance policy is right for me? Which one is best value? Which way can I structure the ownership? Perhaps you can structure your income protection policy so that it's paid for via your superannuation account. This is again why step number 1 is so incredibly important. And on my final component within step or tip number 5 is assume nothing. Never assume that you are going to get a great pay rise, or you're going to get a promotion, or perhaps you're going to inherit some money, because life can change in the blink of an eye. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Taxes change, laws change, governments change. And when you assume that, oh, it's fine, I can start investing next year, guess what? Life may be that little bit more expensive, and you may not have that capacity to be able to do what you said you were going to do. So keep it real, be real, cut the crap, and look at your situation with eyes wide open. You won't regret doing this. It's humbling, but it's also incredibly refreshing. Tip number 6 is know your risk profile. Again, I've mentioned risk profiles time and time again. And the reason why I harp on about this so much is the amount of people that go and invest without doing a risk profile is disturbing. Look, there are lots of different investments out there, and there are lots of different ways to structure your investment portfolio. Australian shares, international shares, property, bonds, fixed interest, cash, hybrids, crypto even. There are lots of different things. But you need to make sure that you are investing in the right type of way for you that takes into consideration your time frame. The more time that you've got, generally speaking, the more risk you can afford to take. However, if you've only got a short time frame, taking risk is fraught with danger. For example, if someone said to me, I'm saving up to buy a home, and I ask them, where is your savings? What cash account do you have? And they say, oh no, it's all sitting in shares. That would make me feel rather nauseous. Now, that's not to say it's a bad idea, but that could be a risky idea. And look, don't get me wrong, those shares could return 20% in the next 12 months, 18 months, I don't know. But it also could go backwards by negative 20%. You need to understand your risk profile because your risk profile will show you and explain and demonstrate the importance of volatility, particularly short to medium term volatility, which could dramatically impact in a positive or negative way you achieving your saving or investing goals. Now, I will link in the podcast notes the Vanguard risk profile questionnaire, which I highly recommend. No, that's not investment advice or product advice to invest with Vanguard. I'm simply recommending their risk profiling tool. There are lots of different risk profiling tools out there, and I recommend doing a few so you can see what your results show and compare them between each other. But I find that the Vanguard one is written in a really clear, unbiased way and gives you some really interesting investing guidelines through their percentage system. So take a couple of minutes to do your risk profile. And I have to say, on that note, once you know your risk profile, just go and check your investments and your superannuation investments to make sure that they match. And if you haven't checked if you've done a risk profile but haven't checked it for a while, I highly recommend doing a quick refresh just in case it may have changed. And it is not uncommon for your risk profile to change, particularly as your level of financial education and knowledge improves over time. Most people tend to feel more comfortable making riskier decisions. So you may have previously been a balanced investor, and a couple of years later, now that you've got more experience under your belt, you might be a high growth or a growth investor. It's worth checking your risk profile. Tip number 7 is to think long term and to focus on your passive income. Quite often when I'm scrolling through Instagram, I see people list their net worth or their gross worth. And I think this is incredibly inspiring and empowering and very motivating. But what my concern is that there's no element of passive income here. You might have a $10 million portfolio, but if your $10 million portfolio only pays you, say, $10,000 a year in passive income, how helpful is that really? And you might have the opposite of this. You may have a $200,000 investment portfolio that's perhaps paying you $20,000 a year in passive income. Which one is a better portfolio for you? So when it comes to looking at your financial goals and dreams, number 1, make sure that you understand that investing and building passive income does take time. But if you are ambitious and motivated and empowered, obviously things like reinvestment, such as dividend reinvestment plans, can really help maximize the compounding interest benefits. However, more importantly, what I'm trying to explain here is the importance of having your focus on your passive income. Very rarely, when I'm looking at my personal investment portfolio, do I look at the gross worth or net worth figure behind my wealth. In fact, I can't even remember when I last did that. What I actually sit down and add up and look at is the passive income. How much passive income do I earn from my investments? Because at the end of the day, my mindful money number is $200,000 a year. I don't care whether my investment is worth $1 million, $10 million, $5 million, or $500,000. I care about how much passive income my portfolio is making for me, because the greater my passive income is, and the closer it is to that $200,000, the closer I am to being completely financially free and independent. So my advice is, when you're looking at your portfolios and you're looking at how much you've invested, what it's worth, seeing your gross and net figures grow over time, that is brilliant. That is great. Do whatever motivates and inspires you. But please make sure you take time to look at the passive income. Add the passive income up, see how much it is, and then peg it against your goals. See how far you are along the way. For example, if your passive income goal, your mindful money number goal is like mine, $200,000 a year, and you can see that your investment portfolio makes you, say, $20,000 a year, that means you are 10% of the way. So build your goals around that passive income. Understand that it takes time, but if you want to speed up that process, the more that you can add, the more that you can invest, and the more that you can reinvest is only going to speed up that process so much more. And again, as I recommend in point number 2, build lots of mini manageable short-term goals that are in positive alignment to that big goal, which in this example is $200,000 a year. Tip number 8 is goals. I can't stress enough the importance of having goals in your life. Actually, it's not even a stress enough. When you set financial goals for yourself, oh my goodness, you have this new sense of purpose, clarity, and direction in your life. Your energy changes, your mindset changes. It's actually incredible what it does to your mental health when you have goals in your life. Now, a lot of people ask me, like, what financial goals should I really be having? At the end of the day, it's completely up to you. But you should be choosing goals that really resonate with you, that excite you, make you feel empowered, make you feel accountable. So you might want to have goals that are around paying off your mortgage, goals around paying off your credit card debt, goals that are around paying off your HEX debt. Just make sure whatever goal you set for yourself that you have a deadline and you break all of those goals up into mini goals. Other great goals that you can have for yourself are investing goals and passive income goals. Building a mindful money number goal for yourself is game changing. My book, Mindful Money, which I will link in the podcast notes for you, explains what having a mindful money number is all about. And what are the steps that you can take to help make sure that you build that mindful money number, that is that passive income over time. I share all the different ideas, strategies, investments, products, even how to fine-tune your mindset so that you can go from strength to strength and actually start seeing that passive income grow. But the importance of having goals for your life is essential. Essential if you want to break free from the financial stress in your life. You want to start seeing progress, experiencing shifts, and even breakthroughs. Set goals for yourself. Set debt goals, set investing goals, set superannuation goals, set retirement goals. Set emergency money goals. Have multiple goals going on. Write them down, give them a deadline, read them every day. And if you like my hacks, try and do one simple thing for each of those goals every single day. Tip number 9, and we're almost towards the end of this podcast, and that is to learn to let go and enjoy less. I'm talking about minimalism here. I've never met someone who regrets leaning into minimalism. It's incredible what the concept of just saying no to consumerism and materialism, it's so refreshing. And the space that you create in your life allows so much more richness to flow in towards you. You have greater depth, you have greater insight as to what you truly value. You have so much more gratitude. When I had Rocco, I had really bad postnatal depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome. I was really bad headspace. And I have a podcast episode that I explain this in a lot more detail if you ever want to listen to it. But minimalism is actually what significantly helped heal my heart and my head. Obviously, I got professional advice and consistent professional advice, which I highly recommend anyone and everyone do who's struggling right now. But minimalism was game-changing. It really helped me peel back all the layers that I was drowning in and actually see what was important to me and what I really stood for, what my values were really about, what was important to me, what I respected, what I wanted more in my life. And by decluttering, reorganizing, saying no to buying more things, not only did it give me more money and fattened up my bank account, it just gave me so much more lightness and therefore so much more energy and clarity in my life. And I am forever grateful to discover the minimalists and the path of minimalism. It really is outstanding and game-changing. Trust me on that. So learn to enjoy living with less. Enjoy saying no. Feel good about saying no. Enjoy looking and showing gratitude to what you already have already. And it's quite insightful as we go through the minimalism journey. We realize actually we have everything that we really need. and more. And we don't need to continue on buying more and more things all the time. Seriously empowering. And then finally, number 10, reward and rest. As I mentioned in tip number 2, sustainability when it comes to your financial goals and dreams is really important, which is why I say don't bite off more than you can chew. But as you are going through your financial journey and you have those bursts and spurts that I talk about in tip number 5, it is so important that you listen to your body, and when you need to, you take a rest. And when you achieve goals, you reward yourself. Now, that's not to say go and reward yourself with this excessive, lavish, luxurious reward that which undoes all of the hard work that you previously did. No, learn how to reward yourself in a valuable, nutritious, fulfilling way. Perhaps it's going to bed early, or making yourself a beautiful meal, or going hiking, or going to the beach, or jumping in the water, or giving yourself a hot bath, or going to the library and borrowing a really good book, or giving yourself permission to finish work early, or even, this is a little bit naughty of me, but taking a mental health day for yourself. Make sure you give your body an opportunity to rest, recharge, reset so that you can regrow again. This is where rewards are really important. And when you are enjoying that particular reward, make sure you stay in the present moment and take a moment to thank yourself, to show gratitude to yourself for doing all the work, creating progress in your life, and feeling proud of how far you have come, and opening up your head and heart to see what other great things are out there for you to achieve and seize. So that is it for today's podcast. My top 10 best common sense tips to help make managing your money easier in an educated, empowered way. Now, on a very separate note, I have hopefully fixed the audio problems with my podcast episodes. If you find the audio for this particular episode so much better, I would greatly appreciate it if you can shoot me through a message on Instagram letting me know. I promise you I am working overtime to help fix the audio and make sure that this is not an ongoing problem. So if you could let me know, I would greatly appreciate it. And leaving me a rating and review also helps me keep going so that I can continue to help make a difference in thousands of households around Australia and, of course, overseas. Thank you everyone for listening. I'll catch you next Monday morning on Sugar Mama's Fireplay.